values. The fact of the matter is, we don't even know whether they believe in God.
This doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you were going to ask...
Excuse me, Dr. Arroway. We won't be suppressing any opinions here today.
Saying that this movie has religious undertones would be an understatement. Now, I'm going to assume that you have watched the movie, so spoilers ahead. Another disclaimer is that I haven't read the novel by Carl Sagan, so I will be critiquing the movie alone as it is. Contact would have been one of my favorite sci-fi movies if it wasn't for about 1 hour into the movie when it all goes to shit. It's a movie that tries being intellectual but just ends up being another preachy misunderstanding on how science and belief works. By the end of the movie, both atheist and theist leave feeling unsatisfied by the conclusion, so let's get right into it.
Attendance at religious services has risen a dramatic 39% in recent days.
Health officials from around the world are concerned that the message from Vega might trigger a rash of mass suicides, not unlike the recent cult deaths near San Diego.
Even a scientist has to admit that there are some pretty serious religious overtones to all this.
This movie presents us with characters that represent different worldviews and ideals about science and religion. I will focus primarily on Ellie, Joss, Haddon, Drumlin, and a few other characters. We have Ellie, who is a scientist that believes research and science should be done as long as it furthers human knowledge of the universe and our place in it. More on her later. Ellie and Haddon, I believe, share similar enough ideals when it comes to science. So I will place Haddon in with Ellie because, like her, he also in his later life started to think in terms of using science to further human knowledge as a way to give back for the taking he had done in his life as a billionaire. Drumlin, who in contrast to Ellie, is a man who believes that science should always be practical and profitable.
Science must first and foremost be accountable to the people who are paying for it, the taxpayers. We need to stop wasting money on pie-in-the-sky abstractions and start spending it on practical, measurable ways to improve the lives of the people who are, after all, footing the bill.
To him, research like SETI, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, was just a waste of tax money. To Drumlin, if it doesn't make money, the research is useless. That's overlooking the fact that a vast majority of scientific breakthroughs happen primarily because of pure research. Breakthroughs like microwave, X-rays, radioactivity, penicillin, insulin, superglue, and many more important breakthroughs were all just accidentally happened upon while doing pure research. So the sentiment that science should primarily or only be meant for pure profit is not only misguided but detrimental to human advancement in the long run. Joss, who is a theist, does not believe that science can help humans find their purpose or meaning. He still believes that science is a tool that can be used for the search of the truth. He also says,
I'm not against technology, Doctor. I'm against the men who deify it at the expense of human truth.
Which I would say is ironic coming from someone who believes in a literal deity that goes against evidence. But oh well. The main contention I have with this line of thinking is that it is a misrepresentation of what science is all about. Science as it is done today isn't meant to be used as a way to find meaning or purpose or even truth. It is a methodology that humans have come up with that can be used to probe the universe and anything contained within. It is a way to pierce the darkness of ignorance with a scalpel of curiosity. Science isn't meant to make any truth claims, just observations and models that try to explain how those observations are the way they are, with those models being superseded by better models that we come up with. So it is an always flowing field of knowledge that is always open to being wrong. Science is not doctrine. Towards the middle of the movie, a conversation happens that signaled the quality drop in the writing for me.
I mean, for me, I need proof.
Proof. Did you love your father?
What?
Your dad, did you love him?
Yes, very much.
Prove it.
His counter against Ellie saying that she would need proof in order to believe that a god did indeed exist is him asking to prove that she loved her father. First of all, let's overlook the fact that this is a very emotionally charged question to ask someone whose father is dead. Secondly, love doesn't need to be proven. Love is an internal experience. Even though we do have indicators that we have agreed to show that we love someone, like worrying about someone when they are sick or hurt, caring for them materially and stuff like that, but love is ultimately a personal experience, like most qualia. It is subjective. The God claim, on the other hand, isn't a subjective claim. It is an objective claim, depending on what God you are claiming exists. If you claim that your God created the universe and everything in it and is apart from it, that would be an objective claim that would need evidence. But if you claim that your God is the essence of the universe or whatever, then that is a personal conviction that need not be validated with evidence.
Let's hear from someone whose organization has been accused of conducting its own inquisition in recent days. Richard Rank, head of the Conservative Coalition.
Thank you. This is yet another example of science intruding into matters of faith.
On the other end of the spectrum, we have fundamentalists, who are perfectly embodied by Richard Rank, who is introduced as the head of the Conservative Coalition. Unsurprisingly, he is also part of the President Advisory Board and is the guy you saw in the intro of this video. While others are worrying about whether or not the machine they are about to build is a weapon or a spaceship, he is more concerned over whether the aliens believe in Jesus. Religious fundamentalism is at its core anti-science, because fundamentalism requires you to throw away anything that goes against your religion, even if that means that thing is common sense. We mostly find that groups like creationists, anti-vaxxers, climate deniers, and flat earthers are mostly comprised of fundamentalists, which isn't a coincidence. The sad thing is that these people are now getting audiences in millions of people to sell their ideals to. They believe that their religion is right and everyone should live by it and its doctrine. They talk about love and acceptance while denying rights to groups they deem not worthy of them. They talk about Christ while being the most un-Christ-like. It is important, though, to distinguish between Christians and Christian fundamentalists. I will be focusing on the latter for the purpose of this movie. And then right at the crazy edge, there are religious extremists. These are represented as a terrorist group that are obsessed with an impending apocalypse that will be caused if the machine is ever turned on. They do eventually succeed by sneaking aboard the machine while it was doing a test launch and blew it up. Some would say that extremism and fundamentalism are two sides of the same coin, and I would agree to an extent. But I believe that there are more nuanced differences we can look at, one of them being that fundamentalists are essentially literalists, people who take the literal interpretation of their doctrine. Another is that extremism is a more militant approach to the proliferation and defense of their doctrine. So an extremist needn't be a fundamentalist, and a fundamentalist can be an extremist. Conflation of these two ideals has led to some religious groups being accused of being extremists, particularly the Muslim community. But we all need to remember that a religious person can be a fundamentalist, but not an extremist, or neither. Towards the end of the movie, Ellie is said to be the pilot of the machine and is ready to make her final statement until Joss sees it fit to ask her one last question.
I believe we are ready to move on to your final statement.
Madam Chairman, I have one more question.
Yes, Mr. Joss.
Dr. Arroway, would you consider yourself a spiritual person?
I don't really understand the point of the question. I consider myself a moral person.
I'm sure we all agree that is the case, but I think what Mr. Joss is in fact asking...
Do you believe in God?
And she could have just lied in this situation, but she gave her honest answer and everything falls apart. In this moment, Joss uses what he knows about Ellie to weaken her chance of doing the mission, even though she was fully prepared for it and was willing to put her life on the line for what she thought was for humanity's future. But no, Joss didn't want her to go, so he did something about it. I'm pretty sure that most people will see that as an expression of love and concern coming from Joss, but it is more of a selfish desire to use your position of power to control a person's autonomy, with them being unable to do anything about it. Joss later meets up with Ellie, and this was their exchange.
Why'd you do it?
Our job was to select someone to speak for everybody. I just couldn't in good conscience vote for a person who doesn't believe in God. Someone who honestly thinks the other 95% of us suffer from some form of mass delusion.
Joss reasons that he couldn't in good conscience allow someone who thinks that people who believe in God suffer from mass delusion was a capable fit to represent humans. Now, if we are being charitable, I'd say that Ellie is an agnostic. She doesn't believe in a God because no sufficient evidence for it has been provided to her. And even if she did think that theists were delusional, that wouldn't really mean anything, because there are people who believe in different gods and think that other people who believe in any god apart from their own are delusional. So this really isn't exclusive to non-believers and is a very bad justification coming from Ross. Ellie also implies that Drumlin had a hand in convincing Joss to ask her about her beliefs, and since he needed a reason to stop her from going on the machine, he willingly played into it. Also, as a side note, Ross claims that 95% of the world are theists, even though it was closer to 80 to 85% in the 90s and has been steadily dropping since then, now at 75 to 85%, which I think was a deliberate add-on by the writers to make it seem more dramatic, which I get. After this, the panel predictably chose Drumlin as the pilot because apparently they need someone who represents 95% of the human population, that being people who believe in some kind of deity. They might have as well eliminated her because she was blonde and gotten someone with black hair that represents 75 to 85% of the human population, just to keep with the theme of wanting to represent the majority. Of course, Joss makes an appearance right before her mission on the second secret machine built in Japan. Yes, there's two of them. Ellie welcomes him and he once again says this.
There's something I gotta say to you. The reason I didn't vote for you to go, Ellie, was a good reason, but it wasn't the real one. I didn't vote for you to go because I don't want to lose you.
My dude, that wasn't a good reason to begin with. So yeah, he didn't want her to go because he was afraid to lose her, which sounds like something right out of the overbearing partner handbook. And Ellie, of course, forgives him. Oh joy. I also find it funny that Joss, a character played by Matthew McConaughey, is in a reverse situation as he was when he played Cooper in Interstellar, a sci-fi movie that is actually coherent with its themes, unrelated but still pretty cool. Yep, this is how the machine looks. And I keep calling it a machine because, like the scientists in the movie, I don't know what it is, or what it even does. At least, before the movie ends.
Some video animation to show you just how this machine, it is thought, will work. The passenger pod will be released. It'll come down through the center of the rings and into the machine's core. The big question everyone here is asking is, of course, what happens then?
So let's start with the cost of it, which was stated to have been about $500 billion, which would likely be double in today's money. The time it took to build isn't explicitly stated in the movie, so I will be generous and say it took them at least 3 years, even though the events in the movie make it seem like it happens in months, forgetting that building such a large-scale project would take at least half a decade, and that's if they even know what they are building. Which brings us to the next thing. They had absolutely no idea what they were even building, even up to the point of the launch, which begs the question, how the hell did they even build it? Think of it this way. If you were to give a very skilled engineer a blueprint to build something he has never seen before, he will probably succeed if it is within his limits. Give him the same blueprints, but in a different language, and the challenge becomes harder, even near impossible. That's exactly what's happening in this movie, just exponentially way more advanced. And I'm not just being uncharitable to the movie. The whole point of no one believing Ellie when she told them her experience was because they didn't know how the machine worked, because if they did, they would have known that it was indeed something that could create wormholes and maybe cause the time dilation she experienced. They knew so little about it that they didn't even bother checking if recording devices worked on the damn thing, which was actually a huge plot point by the end of the movie. They never tested the machine prior to the launch, so they didn't even know what to expect and how to deal with it. And considering that this was a machine that was unknown, you'd think that they could have at least run a few tests before putting in a human. Nothing that happened in the movie suggested that this launch was on a strict timeline, that they had to save time and launch as soon as possible. They literally had absolutely no reason to rush through the testing phase to figure out how this thing worked. Modern projects by NASA, like the recent Artemis 2, take up to a decade of design, manufacturing, testing, and training for the mission to get to the launching phase. And that is with technology we already possess. Well, turns out the aliens are shy and mildly creepy. When Ellie arrives, she is met by her father, but not really, because the whole scene is a fabrication made by the aliens from Ellie's memories to appeal more to her. After the conversation about how they have been watching humans and how humans aren't the only species they have contacted, they have this exchange.
I have so many questions. Do we get to come back?
This was just a first step. In time, you'll take another.
But other people need to see what I've seen. They need to see...
This is the way it's been done for billions of years.
How has what been done for billions of years?
Small moves, Ellie. Small moves.
I know the whole thing is about how a scientist has to learn to have faith and whatnot, but this is ridiculous. I have decided to believe that this whole thing was just a single alien teen trolling humans, and especially Ellie. Just think about it. Humans suddenly receive a transmission. Turns out the transmission was of Hitler. But wait, there's a hidden blueprint in the Hitler transmission, and it's a vague machine that humans can somehow be able to build, which only allows one person on, with all recording devices humans possess not working while inside it. All this before denying the human anything substantial to bring back to the other humans to convince them of your existence. Even though you know how humans are like, with extraordinary claims. When Ellie returns, she is questioned for the authenticity of her claims. She is accused of conspiring with Haddon to fake a signal and the blueprints in order to make the world leaders waste money on the fruitless endeavor. They do an Uno reverse card on her with Occam's razor that she used on Joss to counter his God argument, that being that the simplest explanation is the one that is most likely to be true.
Doctor, are you familiar with the scientific precept known as Occam's razor?
Yes. It means that all things being equal, the simplest explanation tends to be the right one.
Exactly. Now, you tell me, what is more likely here? That a message from aliens results in a magical machine that whisks you away to the center of the galaxy to go windsurfing with dear old dad, and then a split second later returns you home without a single shred of proof? Or that your experience is the result of being the unwitting star in the farewell performance of one S.R. Haddon?
In this case, that being that Haddon had used her to fool the entire world, and not her fantastical tale of traveling to a distant star and meeting her dead father, all in the span of a few seconds without any proof to back it up. Occam's razor wouldn't work in this case because her explanation wasn't even extraordinary and untestable. They still had the machine, and she could have just told them to send in another person to confirm, since they all knew it was safe, which was the first thing they should have done the moment they heard her experience. But she didn't even suggest it. They speak like the fact that there were no records was her fault, when they all witnessed that the recording equipment was malfunctioning before the launch, something they could have cancelled the launch for if they were actually competent scientists.
Dr. Arroway, you come to us with no evidence. No record, no artifacts. Only a story that, to put it mildly, strains credibility. Over $500 billion was spent. dozens of lives were lost. Are you really going to sit there and tell us we should just take this all on faith?
That right there was what this movie was getting to this whole time. This movie has been a roller coaster. I love the premise and I love the theme of evidence or faith. I just hate how it was executed. Some people would say that everyone has faith at some point or another, but I disagree with that because people who say that like to conflate two very different types of faith. There is faith based on an internal aspect of yourself, which has no bearing on the external world, and then there is faith based on the external world. I would say that it takes faith to go to sleep every night and expect to wake up in the morning. But what I would mean by that is that no one is guaranteed that they are going to wake up in the morning. But due to experience of the external world, I know that more often than not, people who go to sleep will wake up in the morning. The faith comes from what I already know about this particular aspect of life that everyone experiences and can be demonstrated. Now, compare that to if I said that I have faith that a glass of water can turn into wine. It might be true, but I don't have any experience of it ever happening in the external world. I have no reason to believe that it can happen except what I internally tell myself to be true. Ellie, by the end of the movie, faces the same situation of people conflating the two kinds of faith. When asked whether she expected other people to take it on faith, as a scientist, she would have said no and insisted on others checking her claims for themselves. But then the point the writers were trying to make would have fallen flat. In the time it took to write this script and edit this video, I managed to actually read the novel, and I have to say that it is a must-read. The novel focuses less on the whole religion versus science thing and focuses more on the science and politics involved in such a situation. The scientists are now actually competent and the characters are way more believable and relatable. There's a lot more I didn't get to talk about because this video is already long enough, so this is me signing off.